Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Barbara Creecy, has announced an increase in the number of rhino killed due to poaching for the last year compared to the previous year. During 2023, 499 rhinos were poached across South Africa. Now, of this, 307 were killed in KwaZulu-Natal. The Kruger National Park recorded a 37% decrease from 2022, with 78 rhino poached in 2023. So Creecy says that last year, 45 accused rhino poachers and rhino horn traffickers were convicted. World Wildlife Fund for Nature SA CEO Dr. Morne Plessis joins us via video link to weigh in on the 2023 rhino poaching report. Dr. Morne, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon.
So let's look at the data emerging and how we begin to make sense of it. Is it, it's not painting a happy picture for us. Talk to the rhino poaching statistics as a major conservation crisis, the pressures also faced in the KZN region at large.
Yes. So since 2007, we have been losing a large number of rhinos in this country. And at some point, we were losing well over 1,000 animals per year to illegal poaching. And most of that was concentrated in the Kruger National Park, where large numbers of rhinos, twice as many as in the entire country this last year. So what we are now seeing is that there's a shift in the poaching syndicates having focused their attentions in the last year or two, increasingly on the KwaZulu-Natal reserves, and particularly in Fisheries and Plessis Park. So it looks like it's a shift. Remember, we're dealing not with a conservation issue here. We're dealing with an issue of highly organized crime syndicates. And it does take some time when the ferocity of these kinds of efforts are directed at a particular geographic region for the response for us to get conservation officials as well as the law enforcement entities in those regions to pull themselves together in order to push this back.
Well, speaking of combating the sophisticated crime syndicates, talk to the arrests, the prosecutions also that had been made, and even the multidisciplinary approaches, the anti-poaching techniques that have been implemented.
Yes, so on the prosecution side, I've seen statistics that indicate that they've had very high success rate once they get people with cases that are being pursued. So they've had over 95% success rate in getting convictions. And it seems that people who can be linked to a crime scene of having killed an animal, that the sort of standard sentence that's been given is around about 10 years. And those who found in possession of rhino horn, in other words, they may be in transit but not the actual killers, those are getting on average about 5 years sentences. So these sentences are much steeper than they used to be in the past, and we think that this is a potential deterrent. But when we talk about protecting rhinos, and of course, huge amounts of money have been invested in Kruger National Park, because they've had a very acute threat of poaching. This is now also increasingly being done in Ezemvelo, in their preserves in KwaZulu-Natal. And it ranges from investments in fence patrols to improving fences, getting smart fences that also can send signals when they penetrated to give you a rough idea of where they penetrated. Aerial support, tracking dogs to make sure that they get to people who've breached into the protected areas before they get to the animals. And of course, this is all within the laws and the human rights that are afforded to everyone inside South Africa. So we're not talking about a war on poachers as much as really clamping down and making it, reducing the reward. Then the training, WWF as an organization is spending a significant amount of investment in ranger training and making sure that we also work with the social side attached to ranger integrity, and also to improve the living conditions of field rangers who work under very, very tough and life-threatening conditions sometimes. So all of these things together, amount to a massive effort and a massive investment.
And obviously it is serving as a deterrent somewhat, given the reduction in numbers. And speaking about the shift in poaching, with the trends indicating that there seems to be a concentration within the KZN region, the costs, the losses to the economy on a national level as well. Perhaps you could break down some of those figures, but also as we look at the black market, concerns on that front, given the illicit activity, even if we're going to be looking at, how the AFCFTA is also set to come into the continent and aid. I wonder if there are any concerns on that front going forward.
So look, rhino, the illegal trade in rhino horn is a very, very perverse matter. The amounts of money that can be derived from the sale of horns, and remember, it's illegal. It's illegal to sell horn to anybody outside of the country, and CITES protects that very, very closely. Ultimately, we're going to have to make sure that we make far greater efforts in either dealing with the markets in Asia, and it's largely countries like China and Vietnam, where the horns are going, as far as we know, that those countries work very closely together with us, and there are two diametrically opposed routes to this. There's the route of reducing demand and making it impossible for users to get rhino horn. And that has driven perverse behavior and these very, very high prices. The other diametrically opposed route would be to actually try and supply the markets. And so there are proponents of both of these different schools of thought, but the rhino wars are not going to be won in Africa. They'll be won or lost in Asia. And so certainly WWF as an international organization is going to make a massive effort to take issue with the Asian side of the supply chain.
Let's leave that conversation there for now. And thank you, Dr. Morne du Plessis, for joining us, CEO of WWF, weighing in on the 2023 National Rhino poaching statistics. We know that according to the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, Barbara Creecy, announcing there had been an increase in the number of rhinos killed due to poaching for last year compared to the previous year. So we'll continue to monitor developments on that front and look at its implications on a national level at large.